Hello? Okay. So I don't know how to start this video, but I'm just gonna say, in sitting in contemplation, and sitting in contemplation with death and life and eating chicken, I realized that death and time, well, it's not that I realized this. It's more so that it kind of just, I finally was able to like, I don't, it was finally, it was finally able to be marinated within my flesh. Oh shit, hold up. Are you ready? If you ignore this, shut up. Okay, I'm trying to wait till it loads a little bit because last time I did it, my voice got cut out. If you want a cake. All I can hear when I watch this gameplay, all I can hear is a Super Smash Mario Kart Double Dash theme song. We need to watch people play that game. But um, all but yeah, it was finally able to marinate in my flesh, and of course, if you watch the show Endless, no, if you read the comic books, The Endless, and if you watch the show on Netflix called not Into the Dream, what is it called, y'all? Oh, The Sandman. If you watch the Netflix show The Sandman, it shows it in season two. It briefly talks about how time and death, how time is death's father, right? Which that's a cute concept. That is so true. But I kind of want to spin that on his head because when I was eating chicken, I was thinking about this because I was watching a YouTuber talk about planets. It honestly spiraled into a lot of stuff that's honestly going to be spiraled into a video. But this YouTuber was talking about planets and how planets were made on a because he's an astral projector. So he was being taught this by I don't know which star race was teaching him, or I think it was his family member teaching him on the other side about how planets were made and stuff like that. And this goes into a video that I'm going to make on this channel about humans and not object permanence. Is that object permanence? Yeah, humans and object permanence and why they have a hard time believing in something outside themselves. Um, yeah, but that video was about completely. Just know that okay, whatever. I can't put it in words, but yeah. So I'm going to make several videos about that, about age, about time, about anyways, so the video that I'm gonna make right now is about time briefly. It's about time briefly because I will be connecting with the essence of time soon, and just connecting with it and learning from it and learning to bend it. Well, eventually, I don't know about soon, but eventually, because I can feel it. The urge, it's in me, but it's not fully strong yet. So usually, it takes a while, a little bit, for it to become more of a desire to do it. So I'm aware of my bodies, y'all. I'm aware of my energies and all that. So it's mostly about time and a little bit about, well, mostly about death and a little bit about time. So when I was sitting here thinking to myself while eating a piece of chicken was death. Okay, so time defines experience. Time equals experience, y'all. It does not equal age. And on the scientific level, time is just a measurement of speed, not age. Remember that. So that goes into another video about age, right? And I'll talk about time in that one too. But time equals experience. Time defines experience. Death defines existence. Death equals existence. And we all know that life and death are the exact same thing. And in the show, The Sandman, or in the comic book, The Endless, I don't know about the comic book. I think it's the same because in the show they just adapted from the comic book. But in the show, The Endless, well, in the show, The Sandman, time is death's father. I feel like that's true, but that's not exactly accurate because I feel like in our reality, in our show, in this dream, time and death are more so siblings rather than parent and child, because they both are equally defining each other. Time defines death, and death defines time. They are also related and siblings. And going back to where I said, because like I said, I'll be touching on time briefly because I'm trying to save it for another video where I talk about the illusion of age, because age isn't real. The only thing that quote unquote ages is cheese and wine and stuff like that. Humans don't age because they're a different technology, right? But that's a whole other video. So we're going to talk about that in another video. But mostly death. So if time defines experience, not age, age doesn't define experience. Age doesn't define time because we are ageless, timeless, immortal beings in a physical form that can also be immortal too if we learn to do it, learn to make it immortal. But regardless if we do or don't, it doesn't change the truth. But so if time defines experience and death defines existence, right? Then what defines death? What defines non existence? Meaning. And what gives meaning to death? Life. Not life how you probably are thinking of it, but life but life in the sense of appreciation. So time defines experience. Death defines existence. Meaning defines life, and life defines appreciation. And appreciation is literally what gives you purpose. That is what gives you purpose, right? And it's so insane because I was really sitting thinking about this, eating a piece of chicken, and I'm like, time, not time. Because the reason why I was like that was because we all know, right? If you're in a part of the spiritual community and if you're more awakened, we hear the phrase, everything is an illusion. And the reason how I came to the conclusion about death and time and all that stuff is because what defines all of that? What defines time? What defines death? What defines life? What defines meaning? What defines any of that? Let me rephrase. What defines time? Because let me slow down. What defines time? What defines existence? What defines death? What defines life, etc.? What defines all that? Because this is how I got to the conclusion of time and death. What defines that is imagination. And the core, and what defines imagination? Belief. Imagine, and please keep up, y'all. I'm sorry, I know I'm gonna be jumping all over the place, but The reason how I came to that conclusion was because I was thinking about imagination. Because this guy was talking about the planets and how they were being made and all that stuff, right? And he was talking about how planets and it's a lot, and I'm afraid I'm gonna get lost. Okay, um, no, I think I'm gonna save it because I don't want y'all to get too lost. This because I'm gonna save this for another video. Like I said, talking about object permanence because that's how I came to the conclusion of object permanence. Okay, so just keep it short and simple and concise, so I won't get lost in the sauce. I'll make that video after this. Is that imagination defines all of that, right? And what gives imagination meaning? Belief. Belief defines all of this. Going back into saying everything is an illusion, right? People have a misunderstanding when they hear that word. Oh, it's fake. It's not real. No, because it's an illusion. That's what makes it real. Illusion, for some people, I'm not saying for everybody, because I'm one of those people. The word illusion, it doesn't do it for me. The word, this is all pretend. This is all make believe. If you relate to that word, you definitely understand what I'm talking about. But it's another way to say that it's all an illusion. But an illusion dictates it's other. It's different. It's kind of cold. You know what I mean? Like it's out of you. It's not real. It's an illusion. Ha ha ha. Like it gives a sense of like dissonance, disassociation. Whereas saying this is all make believe, this is all pretend, it lets you know, wait a minute, I create my universe then. So you telling me I am what I believe. That's what make believe is, y'all. That's what pretend is. This is all pretend. None of this matters, but it does because you believe it does. Imagine if Source created you, and this led me to another thing where death and meaning comes into play. Because I was thinking, what if imagine and people think that, and this goes back into the Witch's Road. If you ever watch Agatha All Along, you know a character called Wiccan, aka Billy Kaplan. And if you watch the Marvel comics, you know he's a chaos magic user, right? He inherits his powers from his mother. She's a chaos witch, and he can create anything he wants. And he created the Witch's Road. In the comic books, the Witch's Road was already a part of nature, already created. In the TV show Agatha All Along, the Witch's Road was created because Billy believed it so. He believed in it so hard it became real. And that applies to us too, by the way. And how we became real. And it's a lot, but we oh, and people want to act like, oh, well, in the show they were like, oh, the audience. I'm talking about the audience. And even Billy, people watching the show and Billy himself, the actor, the TV show character, was like, the road isn't real. Oh, it's not real. It's not real. No, but it is real. What the hell? That's the thing, y'all. The witch's road is real because you believed it to be real. You believed it so. You are made from belief, nothing else. Pure, condensed, focused belief. That's what you're made of. Hold on. Hello? Okay. She's funny. No, we're not. Girl, shut up. That's so toxic to say that. But anyways, sorry. So We are defined by belief. Billy created the road out of pure belief. That doesn't make it any less real, because that means if what we believe isn't real, it's just fake, then that literally means your existence isn't real, isn't fake, which also contradicts itself in a cosmic way, because it's not real. And this goes back into make believe. Because, and I like to use the word make believe and make pretend, because when you make believe and you pretend something's there, it's there. You're pretending it's there. It's real. It's valid. Your experience is valid. And time gives that experience, because you're spending time in that imaginary world with that belief long enough where it's real. So it's real. Just because you can't, just because it wasn't already there doesn't make it any less real. That will literally mean humans aren't real. And aren't you real? Aren't you the realest dream possible? When you say something isn't real, you are inherently saying you aren't real. Because we all existed as source. Then source decided to break off. Just because source didn't have a human form, aka us, humans didn't always exist. Physicality didn't always exist, y'all. Y'all do realize that, right? So, if we understand that, did we exist any less because we weren't physical? Because we didn't have a personality, an archetype? And that goes for other races aside from humans: demons, angels, fairies, witches, unicorns, trees, other planets, gods, deities, spirits, Lyrans, Anunnaki, Andromedans, particles. Just because they didn't exist in a specific form doesn't mean it didn't exist. What I mean is, going back to the Witch's Road and make believe, the Witch's Road always existed. Just because it didn't exist in that reality or in that form doesn't mean it wasn't true. Who created the Witch's Road? Billy Kaplan did. Like I said, go watch the show Agatha All Along. You'll see what I'm talking about. But Billy Kaplan created the Witch's Road. And that road is a place where witches go to regain their power back if they lost it or forgot it, right? So he created the Witch's Road. But how did he create it? How did he give something that didn't have definition, personality, and archetype? How did he give something like that a story? How did he give something that didn't exist at first meaning? Because he believed in it. He defines the Witch's Road. The Witch's Road defines him. The Witch's Road was always inside of him. It just didn't have a form yet. The archetype of the Witch's Road is like many archetypes. It's like the dark night of the soul, the spiritual journey, the shaman's path, right? Because like I said, if y'all don't know about comic books or Marvel, the Witch's Road is literally designed specifically for witches to regain what they lost. Is that not the dark night of the soul? Is that not the shaman descent into hell? Is that not the spiritual journey to regain what you lost, to remember your power? The Witch's Road always existed. It just didn't exist as that form. It existed as many other forms. Going back into, we're all pure imagination. Pure imagine belief defines it. What pure imagination is everything and anything. And because it's everything and anything, there is nothing that doesn't exist. It exists just in a different form. We humans always existed at the beginning of time. We've existed before time existed. We just took the form of another star being. We took the form of Source before Source created personality, before Source created an ego, before Source created a human, right? We existed as light. You know what I'm saying? Huh? Because we're all that. We're all Source. And it took experience, aka time, to make what we know physically as humans. But we existed, just not in the same way or the same concept entirely. But emotions aren't new to the cosmos, but how they're expressed. Now that might be new because now we're something. We're a different type of belief. We're a different type of make believe. We're a different type of pretend. Going back into make believe, when you used to play make believe, when you used to play make believe, you used to pretend you was an adult, right? You was a parent. You had a child. You take care of your kids. You had a little playhouse and all that stuff. It was real. That is no less real than anything else. Going back to Billy Kaplan in The Witch's Road, we define everything. We are creator beings. That goes with every being like us, not just human, other beings too that can create. We are creator beings. We give the dream meaning, y'all. Just because it's not in the form you can perceive it or you can believe it doesn't make it any less real. Time, no, not time. Because it goes back into death, and the sister of death is illusion. And I want to say this real quick. Going back to death. So, death, there's a dark side of death. And do you know what that is? I kind of gave it away, but the dark side of death is illusion. And that's a double negative. Illusion, illusion is the dark side of death. And that's a double negative because what do we say in the spiritual community? Death is an illusion. Because it is. Death is very much not real. But because it's not real, it's real. And because something isn't real, that means it can be real. Humans didn't always exist, but we're real, aren't we? We didn't always exist, but we always existed. It just in a different form. We just wasn't quite human yet. We existed as light. We existed as maybe just energy, as a soul. Maybe we existed as pure imagination, aka source. So, was our existence any less real? Just because we merged back into the void again, does that make any of the experience any less real? That's all I call it the dream because it plays on both of that. But illusion is the dark side of death because it plays two cards. Death isn't real, and without death, there is no meaning. Think about that. The dark side of death, the dark truth of death, is that death is an illusion. So it's not real. So that means we're actually free and we can play with the dream however we see fit and have fun. But at the same time, death is what gives your experience, your time, your experience, your life, your existence meaning. And then brought me to another concept. What if a being existed and there was no concept of death? There was no there was no death at all in any form. Because death applies to all beings. Y'all may not know this, but death actually applies to beings on higher realms and lower realms. Source and pure imagination, true imagination, aka the void. Excuse me. So I'm trying to speak slow because I don't want to speak too fast and go all over the place. Because when I do, I tend to go into one thought or the other. So if I slow myself down, if I slow my time down, it does help a little bit. I don't have my little toy with me. I don't have it. So, not the same. Time, not time. The illusion of death. Um, the illusion of death. Or what I mean by um, because we already talked about how death gives all this meaning. Imagine a realm, a universe where nobody had a concept of death at all. Nobody died, everybody just lived, and there was no death at all. Because death also equals change. So imagine if there was none of that, right? There was no death whatsoever. Could you honestly, in your soul, in your spirit, in your heart of hearts, say that person is alive? That person is living? If death defines life and life defines death, what if you had no death? Then what defines life? What defines living? What defines your existence? What defines the appreciation of existence? At that point, you're just a lifeless AI, right? And that's why death is so scary because it teaches you to appreciate your existence, that it matters, that it means something. We simultaneously exist and don't exist. And that's why we are so real. Not talking about humans specifically, but all beings that can think and have emotions and all that, and free will. The reason why I like calling it make believe is because when you say make believe, something is simultaneously real and not real. When you say illusion, that automatically goes to it not being real at all. And that's not the whole truth. You can use illusion. I don't care what you use. I'm going to make that clear. It doesn't matter what you use as long as you understand the concept of we're all make believe at the same time we're real. Does that make sense? And death is the core of all of that. The reason why, and this is the little theory of mine, unconsciously, this is why I feel like lower beings, specifically humans, because that's all I really know is humans. Why, but I know there are other beings like humans. Why we are afraid of death is not because death is scary. It's because we know the truth of death. We know we know the truth of death. Sorry, I'm trying to see if I'm recording. We sorry, I'm yawning. We unconsciously know that death, the truth of death, is what validates our existence. That's what makes it scary. Because we know that, wait a minute, if we didn't have death, none of this would mean anything. None of this would matter. We wouldn't have any emotions. We wouldn't have any love for anything. We would literally be like robots, y'all. And this applies to every being on the higher realms and the lower realms. Pure imagination, aka source, and true imagination, aka the void. This applies to every being that can create, right? And even ones that don't create. But this applies to every being on the highest realms and the lowest realms. The reason why a lot of humans unconsciously are afraid of death is because not because death is necessarily scary because it's bad and it takes what makes death scary is because we know the truth. And the truth is death is what gives your existence meaning. It defines your meaning. And when we mourn, we're not crying because somebody died. We're crying because we appreciate and value death unconsciously. Of course, some of us know consciously why we do it, but a lot of us don't know unconsciously why we cry. And death is just cruel. Death is cruel because it shows you that it's an illusion. What? Exactly. You see what I'm saying? Death plays into both fears, both anxieties. None of this matter. So what do you mean? But wait, without death, I wouldn't experience anything. You see how convoluted the imagination is, how convoluted source is? This is why there is no separation. There is no this or that. Okay? And we understand, like I said, we understand that death, the truth of death is that it's an illusion. So it gives you meaning. It gives you meaning to live, to appreciate life and experience it. Creation, the dream, right? Otherwise, none of this would exist anyway. That's why death exists. Death exists because you exist. You understand what I mean? Uh, we're gonna pause this video and just sit with this a little more. But because because there was something I wanted to say that kind of loops back into this. But going back into make believe, this is what I'm saying. It's make believe because it has meaning and it doesn't. Just because you can't conceive it doesn't mean it doesn't exist in another form or it doesn't exist at all. And going back to death, um, like I said, that's what I wanted to say. So in the show, uh, The Sandman, there was a scene, I think in season two. I don't remember season two. No, it was definitely in season two, I think, where one of the endless were like, I even know what the endless are. They're like cosmic concepts. So one is dream. Sorry, I meant to say that. One of the endless is called dream. One is destiny. The other is delirium, formerly known as delight. One is despair, desire, and death. Oh, and destruction. They're cosmic concepts, right? One could say they're not real because they don't live and eat and breathe like humans. But who are you to say they're not? And in the show, they say humans define their existence. So if everything is make believe, how come it's not real? How come it's not any more real than you are? What makes it less real? How can you truly define what's real if it's all made up to begin with? You can't. You just believe it. You just believe it. Because you are pure imagination in a single drop. Experience itself. Just because those beings, those concepts exist in a different form doesn't make them any less real. It's all real. You want to know why? Because you can experience it. You can experience your own make believe world. And if this is all make believe, then that means everything is simultaneously real and not. And that's what makes it even more real. Because you put belief in it to make it so. How do you think you got here? Like I said, because some child has an overactive imagination and a dream of beings like us existing. Because Source wanted to experience itself. And where do you think we came from? Pure imagination. We're not real. We're no more real or fake than anything else. And that's just, it is what it is. A truth. You know what I'm saying? You can't ignore that because it permeates everything. Not this crackhead. How many? Okay, I should be done before this video's up. Um, I want to say something else. We, like I said before, we give death. Oh my god, my face beat up. We give death meaning and death. Oh yeah, in the show, they said that humans give them meaning, but what they forgot to say was they give humans meaning. Humans give the concept of death meaning, just and everything meaning, just as much as everything give us meaning. Just because death isn't a human doesn't make it any less real. We give death meaning and death gives us meaning. And this is where I say everything is everything. And everything literally reflects each other. That's not a bumper sticker. That's a truth. We give everything meaning. We give everything meaning and everything gives us meaning. Because without meaning or death, then what is there to believe in? If you can't believe in yourself, then what is there to believe in? And if we're the dream experiencing itself, if we're source experiencing itself, and if source is pure imagination, and imagination is made off make believe, then if we don't believe, then what are we here for? Then what are we? Do we really exist at that point? Do we? So, yeah, I think I'm pretty much done with that. I don't know. I'm afraid that when I get off, I'm gonna have some more, but if I do, I could just add it, honestly. Because I'm not going to upload this anytime soon. Because I still got like 3 other fucking videos I have to upload. But, uh, yeah, I have time. I have time. And there really isn't no rush. And it also goes back into like and it also goes back into there is nowhere to be because where to be is where you are. There is nowhere to be because where to be is where you are. On top of that, we can astral project and remote view and lucid dream. So, but yeah, because I was thinking about that too. Because I was like, I experienced like 20 different lifetimes in my bedroom. I've experienced 20 fucking different lifetimes in my bedroom, especially after I started healing my trauma. I'm like, oh, this is traumatic. But yeah, so once again, death is what gives all this meaning. And that meaning is appreciation because it gives the dream value. That appreciation gives the dream value. That death gives the dream meaning, gives us meaning, and that meaning gives us the dream value, aka source, aka pure imagination. Without any of that, nothing, nothing exists. Nothing would matter, right? Just like if we don't care about somebody's cat dying, that doesn't exist to us. If we don't care about um it being a thunderstorm, that doesn't exist to us. If we don't care about doing homework, that doesn't exist to us. You know what I mean? And I mean caring, like absolutely not caring. You know what I mean? But yeah. So just remember that, y'all. Like the dark side of death is illusion. And that illusion plays on the fact that Death isn't real. At the same time, death is what gives your life value. So it's very real. And because everything is make believe, made of pure imagination, it's even more real and not real at the same time. What I'm saying is, we got to be able to hold truths. And this goes back into pure imagination. And oh my God, and what I discovered about imagination. The reason why they cut off your imagination as soon as you're born is not just because you're closer to source. It's because imagination defines everything. There is nothing above imagination. Wisdom and experience mean nothing without the imagination to give it meaning. People think wisdom and experience are the highest form of something. It is. Wisdom and experience are very, very important. But what's higher than wisdom and experience? Imagination. And what's the core of imagination? Belief, believing, make believe. So we give experience meaning. We give time meaning. We give life meaning. We give death meaning. We gain meaning. We give meaning to wisdom. We give meaning to knowledge. At the exact same time, they all give meaning to us. That's why death is so scary. It's because, wait, you can tell me I can give this meaning, but what happens when it's taken away? What happens if somebody takes something you value most? Death. When someone takes away what you value most, death. And death is neutral. So you can value toxic relationships. But when you go through a dark night of the soul, your ego is going to feel like it's death. Because it's death. Because death is illusion. And the eroding, death is the illusion and the takeaway of the illusion. It's the illusion and the eroding of the illusion. Psychopathic is source for creating such things, right? The biggest psychopath would be source for just existing. Because if source didn't exist, none of this would. Oh, that's scary. And that's death. Think about that. Think about that, y'all. How death is scary because we give it meaning. Because we give it meaning, we're afraid of death. But death is the illusion. Isn't that psychotic? What kind of sick, twisted game are we playing here? Source is sick. Source is a psychopath. It takes a real psychopathic mind to create. Period. You have to be a psychopath to create because once you create, you're selfish. Wait, how am I selfish if I'm creating? Because now that being experiences death, just imagine that. Just imagine that. Even the higher beings can experience death. It's just the way. And going back into, just because you can't conceive it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Death is a shapeshifter. Death is a trickster. So death would take the form of whatever. Death isn't limited to one concept, y'all. Like I said, death is illusion. So if your toxic behaviors you value most, and then you start, so if you value toxic behaviors the most, and then you start going on a spiritual journey, and you start to alchemize those toxic behaviors, that's death to your ego. That's death. If you physically die, that's death. If you forget who you are, that's death. If you completely dissolve back into the void, lose all your personality, and cease to exist, that's death. That's why death gives everything meaning. Because it does. and why the illusion of death is what gives death even more meaning. Because nobody wants their what they value most taken away. Nobody wants what they love taken away. That applies to anybody. I'm not talking about loving somebody else. What if you love yourself? Or what if you love a bad behavior? Or what if you love harming people? Nobody wants what they value most, aka love, to be taken away by death, by Lady Death. Because death simultaneously will strip the illusions and also give the illusion meaning. AKA, death is what gives the imagination meaning. It gives the dream meaning. Death is very toxic, it seems like, isn't it? Very bipolar and toxic and hateful. Okay, not hateful, but y'all understand what I'm saying. Without death, we don't exist. And that applies to source themselves. Because they would have no meaning. Because death equals meaning. Death doesn't equal dying necessarily. That's just the most basic level one understanding of it. But at its core, death is meaning. What do you give meaning to? And watch it be stripped away. You know what I mean? Even if your goal is to come to Earth just to merge back with the void, what if that was stripping away from you? What if that was taken away from you? The urge to be one with everything, with the void. Sometimes living is death. Now think about that. Because death gives life meaning. Like I told y'all, death defines life, and life defines death. And that means, and death can come in so many forms. It's not just illusions like, oh, dissolving illusions, death. No, merging back with the void is death. It's death of the personality. Y'all, it's convoluted and it eats itself. And it gets confusing on purpose because it is. Death, two things. When you dissolve and go back into nothingness, you're dissolving your essentially existence. You're dissolving your personality, what you are, what you gave meaning to, death. But you're also dissolving the illusion that you were even alive to begin with. You're dissolving that personality. You're dissolving your experience. You're dissolving, you're shedding. You're literally dissolving the illusion of being a single being. Death. That's death. That's the literal alchemical process, dissolving the illusion that you were one to begin with. At the exact same time, you were. You are. And that's why death is so toxic. Because you are and aren't at the same time. And I would say death would be one of the good. I don't know if there's any other examples, but from what I understand, death is one of the best examples to describe that. Aside from things being made, aside from using the concept of imagination, death and imagination go hand in hand. So you can use both. Death gives everything meaning. You don't exist, you do exist. Imagination gives everything meaning. You don't exist and you do exist. So they both play into each other. And imagination knows that. Source knows that. Because source is death. Just as much as it is life. Because when you become one with source, you're dissolving all illusions. At the same time, you're still playing into those illusions. And death is that illusion. And that's what gives it meaning. Death gives death meaning. Death gives everything. It gives imagination meaning, source meaning. Going back to what I said last time, I'm done repeating myself. I just want to make sure that it's clear. Going back to what I said earlier about if a being was created with no concept of death, this being didn't die. They didn't die at all in any way, shape, or form, and they had no concept of death in any form. Are they truly alive? Do they truly exist? Is death their illusion of life? Or is their life the illusion that there is no death? Or is their life the illusion of death? Literally, I'm saying all the same thing. If a being didn't have a concept of death, are they truly alive or are they dead? That's what I'm trying to say in so many words. Do they exist? Oh no, you tell me. You tell me. But yeah, death is so cool. That's why I love death so much. I've been working with that, and I think lately though, I've been slowly noticing. I've been really getting into death magic. Like I like the concept of death and just like death magic in general. And like, okay, I'm done. Um, and getting into what that means for me, and just like in general, just sitting with philosophical truths, right? Just sitting with these truths and becoming one with them. Let me put this down. Becoming one with them. And that's why death is so feared and potent and powerful, because we don't fear death because it causes suffering necessarily. We fear death because it shows us there's something we cannot deny, and that's our own existence. And what's more scarier than a being that's aware it's alive? A being that's aware that it's creating its own dream, that it's creating its own death. That's why death is afraid. That's why death is so scary. It's a mirror to show you are the reason I exist, and I'm the reason you exist, and you cannot deny me. That's a lot of power. Death is potent and powerful because it shows you your truth, something that can't be denied. How scary is that? A truth so real, so potent, so undeniable that you can't deny it. No matter how hard you believe it away, it's going to be there. That's why death is scary. It reminds you that. And no matter how you slice it or spin it, even if you merge back into the void, death is part of that cycle. You can't deny that. You can't deny me. And death is source. And source is you and your source and your death experiencing itself. How scary is that? It's psychotic. Only one being can come up with something like that. A being who at the highest level goes beyond the word psychotic, goes beyond the word mad scientist, goes beyond the word sociopath. That's Source. Source is the biggest sociopath ever to exist. And they know that. And now you know that. But yeah, thanks for my soul talks. All right, that's it. I think we're good here. If I hit some more truths, I'll add it into this video. But we're almost at an hour. So I'll see y'all. Love y'all. Bye. Remember, you are death. Don't fear yourself.